Welcome to Good Morning Kenya. If you're just joining us, my name is Jane Wamboy. We are glad to have you on board. Please feel free to be part of this journey. We're about to have a fantastic discussion on matters concerning persons with disability in regards to the forthcoming census. Now, you can talk to us via our communication platforms. The hashtag on Twitter is hashtag Good Morning Kenya. My handle is Jane Wamboy. Our official station handle ever remains at KBC Television, and our SMS line on the top left of your screen is 20154. Now, we want to have a discussion in regards to the whole aspect of inclusion for persons with disabilities, bearing in mind, just looking at the last census, only 1.3 million persons with disabilities were counted, which constituted to about 3.5% of the entire population, and that is definitely and that is clearly not the exact figure of persons living with disabilities here in Kenya. So what are we doing to ensure that no one is left behind come the census of 2019, which will be happening starting the night of the 24th up until the 3rd of September? What do we have to do to ensure that no one is left behind? But before we get to talk about ways in which we can actually make that come to light, I have three fantastic guests with me in studio. I'll start with the gent to the extreme left. He is Peter Muchiri, who is the chair of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities. Karibu sana.
Asante.
At the center, we have Abdi Abdile, who is a deaf advocate. Welcome. And in his place, we have Susan Thuku, who will be our sign language interpreter for today's discussion. And to my immediate left, who is on your screen right now, that is Beth Kimani, who is a parent to a special needs children. And she also works a lot with, organizations that deal with children with Down syndrome. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
All right. And just as I told you, we will be having Susan Thuku, who is the sign language interpreter for this interview. Now, let me start with you, Peter. The whole aspect of inclusion has remained to be a very gray area, gray area that has had so many issues over time. And for about 2 years, the National Council did not have a board. What's the situation as of now?
Okay, let me first say this. I would like to wish my Muslim brothers and sisters Eid al-Adha. And number two, let me say this, the National Council for Persons with Disability. The National Council for Persons with Disability is a state corporate, which was enacted by an Act of Parliament 2003. The core mandate of the National Council for Persons with Disability is to make sure that persons with disability are taken care of, accessibility, and to look at the issues of persons with disability. Some of these issues is about the census, the population of persons with disability in our country. And for us as National Council for Persons with Disability, inclusion has been a challenge.
Yeah.
This year, in June, we went for the United Nations Convention on the Right of Persons with Disability. And the topic was leaving no one behind and inclusion. What are we saying here? All persons with disability in countries which they have ratified the United Nations Convention on the Right of Persons with Disability must adhere to that international instrument. For us, as the National Council for Persons with Disability, 2 years down the line, we didn't have a board in place. And majority of persons with disabilities suffered a lot. According to the statistic of the National Council for Persons with Disability, we are talking about the registration of persons with disability in our country.
Yeah.
How many people with disability have registered with the National Council? Some of these issues, they are the issues which we as the National Council take care of and look after for this. You can check about parents, and Madam Jane, she's here. We are talking about children with disability. The government has come with a good policy. Yes. What are we doing as the National Council? What are we doing as a community and Kenyans for these children? The government has come with a law that each and every severe person with disability must be given 2,000 shillings. But this was a government initiative together with our development partners. And
how is the implementation process for that?
the implementation process for the cash transfer, it's good. We have a target of 47,000 beneficiary for the cash transfer. But sometime when we try to hit this target, we get about 42,000.
So there are those who are still left behind.
Sometimes you don't get these children. Sometimes you don't get these persons with disability. You'll find a person has about 27 years old and is still hidden in the house.
And we'll be coming to some of those challenges that, continue to be such a big problem when it comes to the process of registering persons with disability.
True.
Let me come to you, Beth, in regards to your organization. Maybe you could tell us a bit about what your organization does in respect to children with Down syndrome.
Our organization is Global Support Mission, and what we usually do is to do a lot of sensitization and try to encourage as many parents as possible to register with the NCPWD, so that they can also enjoy those privileges that the chairman has mentioned about. But the biggest challenge you find when you're trying to encourage people to register is there has been so much stigmatization about the people who are challenged, and therefore you find that because of the cultural, social isolation, they are still not confident to come out and talk about their issues, to come out and do the registration. They sometimes even fear that you are telling us to come out and get registered, and then you might use this information to do other things with it. As you know that there has been a lot of abuse of information and people getting information and they are not doing the right things with it. Others are not able to fill the forms, but they are a bit shy to talk about it because they do not want to be known that they are also having the challenge. You'll also find some other cases of people who do not know anything about it. And so it is a continuous education about these people. So it is a high time the government comes up with such kind of this kind of interviews, because so many people will see and they will learn that it is important for them to get registered, because when they get registered, there are so many benefits they're going to get from the government. Yes.
Now let me come to you, Abdi. You are a deaf advocate, and so many times, persons with disabilities, the biggest issue still remains stigmatization. Maybe you could tell us a bit about your journey and how it has been so far in regards just to bring down this curtain that is stigmatization.
Thank you very much. First, I want to thank the government and the National Council for Persons with Disability, because it is doing a lot of good work. And it is really helping many people with disability overcome their challenges, like getting jobs. For example, maybe there are some deaf people there who need access to government offices. And sometimes we have challenges when we get there. Maybe persons with disability, when they need to access some buildings, we have challenges in accessibility. So we need some people maybe to go to school, but we have very many challenges. For example, the deaf people have challenges with school fees. And sometimes when they go to the university, they need to pay interpreters. And sometimes it is difficult for them to pay the interpreters. So maybe we also have challenges, maybe with albinism, about the lights, again with the blind. But we want to thank the Jubilee government because it is really doing a lot for persons with disability. For example, there are some people who are working very, very, very hard in the government. And the government is really doing a lot for persons with disabilities. And we are happy about what the government is doing. So we want to say it's a good job. There's challenges that are there. But there's a lot that is being done. We also are not happy about the attitude with some people who go out begging in the streets. We wouldn't want people to beg. We would want people to go to school and learn and stop begging. and stop this bad attitude of giving a bad name to persons with disabilities. We should go to school and get equal opportunities like other people. I remember in the month of 2-3 months ago, there was a group of people who had gone to demonstrate in Parliament because they needed to be heard. For example, maybe if a pregnant woman went to the hospital and the doctors do not know sign language, there is a big challenge trying to communicate. And sometimes you explain you are pregnant, maybe they think there's a problem there, and many people need to learn sign language so that we can have accessibility like our constitution says. We have 3 national languages. We have Kiswahili, English, and then that national language is the sign language. So many people need to embrace this language and learn more and make our life easy.
All right.
People think that sign language is very difficult, but it is very, very, very easy.
Yeah. All right. Now, just looking at some of the issues that you have mentioned, and the first one, and I'd like for you to just, in regards to even coming up with solutions and looking at the society specifically, what more do you feel we need to do as a society to try and bring down this stigmatization that is there, that really, puts off persons with disabilities from coming out and seeking the necessary help from the relevant authorities that have been put in place to help?
I think the best thing that the government can do is to create a lot of awareness, because stigmatization actually starts when the child is born. It starts from the hospital. Because take, for example, children who are born with special needs.
Yeah.
And I'll talk more about Down syndrome because that's what I've really experienced about. You find that at the hospital, you're told that the insurance covers will not cover as congenital diseases, they will not cover therapy, they will not. So it starts right from the birth. Then stigmatization goes to the family, because there's some, within the family, they might accept the child, but the neighborhood might not accept the child. So the stigmatization continues. Then it goes further to schools. You find the government has given provision for children, for regular children. They have given teachers, they have given, the exams are set according to the way they can be able to handle them. Okay. But for children with disability, the government has not looked at them. They don't provide learning support teachers. Yet they are providing supported teachers for the regular children. The exams with the way they are set, they are not favorable to children with disability. So stigmatization still continues because that is a form of discrimination. And the government needs to come in and make sure that even children with special needs are able to sit in schools, regular schools. And when they go to schools, another thing that comes up is that you find that the children with special needs are set aside. They'll be in a mainstream school because the government said that there'll be inclusion, but they are set and put at a certain corner. They are not around to mingle. They are secluded, yes. They are not allowed to mingle with other children. Stigmatization continues. Okay. And the government needs to come up with programs, with teaching programs to start teaching children from the small ages that disability is not an inability. They need to keep training the children to accept them. And if it starts from the young ages, they will be able to be accepted even at the older ages. Okay. But you find that because that stigmatization started from the young age, it has continued up to their old age. And that's why you find that the cultural social isolation is really felt by persons with disability. They feel secluded. They feel like they are not part of the government. They feel like they are set aside. And after school, again, you go to colleges, you find that the same thing is continuing. You go to universities, the same seclusion is happening. Yeah. And even when you go to workplaces, like last night I was talking to a person with a disability who has lost his job, and he was telling me that he's even afraid of going now for another interview, because he was saying that when they go for interviews, they are looked down upon. And like when he was working, he's told that he's not able to execute his duties, and not because he's not able to, because his features, his speech, he can't hear properly. So if anything he does, he's set aside. So until the government implements the laws, the laws are improved from education to insurance policy to including persons with disabilities in decision making in all levels, because there is no way you'll have somebody who has no disability making decisions for somebody who has disability. It is good to have the people who have disability making their own decisions. So it is good for the government to have an inclusion along the way.
Okay, just talking about, to add what my colleague has said about inclusion, you'll find children with disabilities. Some community, when you give birth to a child with disability, those child are killed.
Yes.
Number two, some feel it's a curse in a community. And if a parent give birth to that children, they also hide those children. They don't bring them out. Okay, I totally agree with my colleague here, but the government has done a lot. In terms of awareness and inclusion, the government has good policies, but what are we doing as a community? When you see advertisement in newspapers about job, you see there down, persons with disability are highly encouraged to apply. But when you apply and you are shortlisted and you enter to that interview room,
you're immediately disqualified.
That stigmatization, people look at you, style, this person will be, he's using a wheelchair, maybe he or she is deaf or blind. So that is a stigmatization, because people will ask you so many questions. Will you be able? I have had a lot, because in our offices we receive some of these cases. There is a girl who came to my office and she was telling me that when she was employed, she's a girl with a visual impairment. And the only job she used to do is to sit down and receive guests. And she was she had qualified more than the colleagues in that office. So she was just asking her boss, what are we doing? I'm qualified, and that is why I applied for this job. But now my job is to sit here from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. doing nothing. So she had to quit and start her own business. We are talking about, let me give you a topic also, empowerment for persons with disability. Also, the government has come with good policy, 30% for women, youth, and persons with disability. And I'll shock you now.
Yes.
On Friday, I had a meeting with head of procurement of government, Mr. Coril, in Treasury. And he was showing me the statistic of women organizations, women who have registered companies with the government. 180 women companies, farms for women. For persons with disability, 700. Even, we have not even surpassed 1,000. Youth, 56,000. So what are we saying? Even persons with disability, we have good laws from the government. And as a community, we need to encourage our people and do a lot of awareness just to make sure that our people register those companies. They do jobs with government. That is why Mr. Abdi has said here, my brother, that we don't want persons with disability to beg. We need to empower these people. We need to give them opportunity so that they can showcase their ability. And that is very important for our people.
All right. Now, the other aspect, well in line with what you're saying when it comes to inclusion, is the whole aspect of representation. Now, looking at some stats from 2017, there are over 20 counties that did not have representation for persons with disability. In regards to representation in, authority, in levels of authority, leadership position, what more do you feel needs to be done to encourage that sense of representation? And just as she's saying, a person without disabilities cannot represent a person with disabilities.
Yeah, that is what you're saying. We totally agree with you, because 20 counties in 2017, we don't have a representation of persons with disability. And the entire, also, you look, we are talking about 2/3 gender rule. Also, this 2/3 gender rule is applied in county government. And when women with disability or girls, youth with disability, who happen to be women, when they go to other women and they ask them, we are persons with disability, but also we are youth and women. But the women, the reply which they get is that persons with disability have their own seats, have their own issues. Why? We need to look at this. Even a woman with disability is still a mother, is still a youth, is still a mother, is still a youth, and a woman also. For us, what we are saying as a National Council, we need totally inclusion. We're not talking about the two-third gender rule. And when this seat comes, only able women will pick all the seats. But women with disability are tend to be forgotten.
Yeah.
We have a lot of discussion with Gender and Equality Commission as a council. And we are telling them, as persons with disability, we shall not agree. We need a percentage for women with disability, youth with disability, who happen to be women. Yeah.
So they also need to be catered for and not be put under the same bracket as opposed to what is being done
Sure.
as of now.
Yeah.
All right. Now, let me come to you, Abdi, in regards to issues to do with security for persons with disability. It still remains a gray area that most people don't talk about. And maybe you could tell us a bit about what you're doing for the deaf in trying to just ensure that they're also included when it comes to matters to do with their personal security.
Give them my ID. Then they will ask me very many questions. They will ask very, very, very many questions. And sometimes you get very, very, very annoyed very fast. Maybe sometimes I'm called for a meeting. Then I go for a meeting very, very fast. But you know, some persons with disability, sometimes they're very slow. So we need to care for all people equally. All people and young people, all of them need services. They need accessibility, they need support. And the government program, like during the elections, they always consider the old people. And also persons with disabilities during the elections.
All right. Yes.
Yes, and
Beth.
to add on to what Abdi has said, we also sensitize for the people who have disabilities to get the NCPWD card. There's a card that people with challenges are given. When they have that card and they meet with police like Abdi is saying, and when you produce that card, at least it makes the police understand that this person cannot hear, this person has this kind of a challenge. So it helps them to get away from being asked the so many questions that Abdi is saying that they are put through by the police. It also helps, like if it's for the children who are like for the Down syndrome children who are not able to express themselves, when they carry that card and they are asked for their names, some of them who are not able to express themselves, they remove that card and they show it. So you are able to understand that this child has this kind of a challenge.
All right.
Yes.
Now, still in light with what Abdi was saying, when it comes to communication between, you know, even the relevant authorities, when you meet with the police out there, and maybe he's deaf, as he's saying, the police doesn't know how to address them. When it comes to just empowering even the relevant authorities, when it comes to how to properly help persons with disability when need be, what more do you feel needs to be done, and also to make sure that they're protected while at it?
Okay. One of the core mandates for the National Council is awareness. And we have a department called Disability Mainstreaming. As a council, we partner with all the government relevant authorities to make sure that we take this disability mainstreaming to them, so that they can understand, because some of us as a country, we also enter into personal issues of persons with disability. Like my brother here, Abdi, is a deaf. and he wants to go to a doctor. So, and you know, when you want to go to a doctor, you want to go and express yourself personally. You don't need a third person or an interpreter. So when an interpreter come in, that is not a secret anymore. That is why we are saying this disability mainstreaming must be taken everywhere, even to you media.
Yes.
Because when everybody knows the sign language, even the doctors, even the lawyers, everybody, they can share with our people what they want to discuss.
Yeah.
As a council, another core mandate is about registration, what my sister has said here.
And you can also tell us a bit about the process for those who haven't been able to get on board.
The registration for persons with disability, that is a core mandate for the council. And we are talking about the population and the statistic of persons with disability in our country. We are talking about when you want to register as a person with disability, there are those people who are born with disability, those who acquire disability in life, and out of sickness, accident, and all this. One, you need to be checked by the doctors. We have a board of doctors. Every month, government, hospital, districts, and counties, and national hospitals like Kenyatta, we have a panel of doctors who do assessment for persons with disability, just to make sure if these people indeed they are permanent disability or it's just temporary disability.
To avoid situation of
avoid
fraudsters.
yeah, we have a lot of them. They have been coming to our offices to request these cards and everybody. So one of these things, first of all, when you're checked by the doctors, you have been given an medical report.
Okay.
Where we have a challenge, and this is being, the government is dealing with it in a PS level right now, is about the signature of Director of Medical Services. Because these forms and this medical report must come all the way from each and every corner of this country to one Director of Medical Services here in Afya House. This is what we want to change this narrative.
Yeah.
Because you'll hear persons with disability complaining that I registered as a person with disability. 2 years down the line, the council has not given me the card, the registration card. But that is not a problem of the council. Now you see that is a different state agency which is dealing with the council. And that is why we have taken this matter to the next level, so that it can be discussed in a cabinet meeting. So for persons with disability, number two, when you register and you get a medical report, that is when, as a council, we register you, we take your photo, we register your details, and we give you a card. The benefit of this card, and my colleague has explained here, that is one. Number two, persons with disability, they don't pay taxes.
Yes.
Another thing, persons with disability receive mobility devices free. Persons with disability, education assistance is free, and we are paying 50,000 for secondary schools, 75,000 for universities. Number four, the taxes, when you are employed by a government and you are a person with disability registered with the National Council, you don't pay tax. You're not cut your tax even if you're working in a private sector. Those are some of the benefits which as persons with disability get from the government.
From being registered, as you know, with the National Council for Persons with Disability. And of course, especially in regards to fraudsters, it still remains a challenge. And from what we are hearing, you know, it's something that you guys are really working hard to just try and bring down.
Yeah. Here in Nyamakema, they try to bring up those cards. But as the National Council for, that is why after 5 years, you are subjected to another vetting of the doctors. So that to make sure if these people indeed, persons with disability complain, and they say, kama mimi natumia wheelchair, if I'm using a wheelchair, I'm permanent. But the aspect of doing this assessment again is to actually to flush out all those fraudsters.
All right. And